Trying to figure out.
Hello, my name is Robert Schmid, also known as Mr. IoT. I am the Chief IoT Technologist for Deloitte with a deep passion for all things digital. This week on Coffee with Mr. IoT, we have Robert Xiao, and we are talking about Desktopography. Hey, Robert, how are you doing? Did I say that right? I still have problems pronouncing it.
Hi. Robert Xiao, actually.
Robert Xiao, but how about the big? So that was a good correction. How about the Desktopography?
Desktopography, yeah. Yeah, it's a mouthful, I know.
Robert, you are from Carnegie Mellon. You're doing a PhD there. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then tell us about your project. I find it super interesting what you're doing there, and yeah.
Yeah, so I'm in my...
we are all looking forward to.
Yeah. So I'm in my 6th year of a PhD here at Carnegie Mellon University. Yeah, I'm almost out. So taking my time. I work in the field of human-computer interaction. So what that is this is a field of computer science that's studying specifically how to make computers better for humans. So maybe unlike a lot of other computer science disciplines, our focus really is about improving computers and the computer interface, rather than just sort of improving computers for computers' sake. So we use things like machine learning, computer vision, other sort of hardware technologies. I build electronics, I build software in order to make the interface between people and computers better, and in order to allow computers to better understand people, and to invent new ways for people to interact with their computers.
So you're like the Xerox PARC of this year, not like from 20, 30 years ago, right?
Sort of, yeah. And actually Xerox PARC, a lot of the GUI stuff is traditionally HCI. That's sort of what's considered human-computer interaction at its finest. Going from the command line to the graphical interface. That was one thing that all the technologists were like, we don't really care about the GUI. It seems so GUI, right? But actually, that was a transformative thing for the interface, right? For ordinary people to be able to use computers, right? Instead of esoteric people like hacking away at a command line. So that's the kind of thing that we're sort of trying to build, is better ways for people to interact with their computers. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm wondering, has the next Steve Jobs walked through your lab yet and picked up some ideas?
Maybe, yeah. You're welcome to stop by and have a demo,
Oh, great, I appreciate this. I wish I'd be the next Steve Jobs, but maybe still coming, so that's pretty awesome. So tell us, you wrote an article and you had this whole idea that all you need is a light bulb socket to work. What does that mean? I mean, do you have something to show? Explain it to us. I saw it and it's really cool, but explain it to the people watching, because I think it's really interesting what you guys are thinking of.
Yeah, so the basic idea is I want to basically bring interactions out from the little screens that they're confined to right now. So all the things we do with computers right now, it's stuck inside a little screen, right? Little black rectangle. So you interact with your phone, you interact with your computer, you interact with your smartwatch maybe, right? But all those interactions are just confined to the screen. They don't exist out on our real world. What I want to do is sort of break interaction out of that mold. And so the idea is present interfaces that exist on your desk, on your walls, on your tables, on your furniture, wherever, right? And the starting point for that is what we're calling like the smart light bulb, or the info bulb of the future. This is something you can just sort of screw into a light socket. And we've built a functioning prototype. This is a prototype with a projector and a camera and a computer, all built into a little package that's about yay big. You can screw that into a light socket. Basically, with this technology, what you can actually do is you screw it in and you get a projective interface on a desk or a table or something like that. Yeah.
So I don't have a screen anymore. I don't have a keyboard anymore. I don't have a mouse anymore. All I have is something projected on any surface I want, and I interact with that with my hand or with my voice, or how do I interact with it?
Yeah, so the primary mode of interaction with this is actually touch. So people are very familiar with that now. So it's like having, an 80-inch touch screen on your desk, right? So this is something people are pretty familiar with. And there's nothing that rules out, like, if someone really wants to get a power user, they can hook up like a Bluetooth keyboard right? And I do that when I want to, actually code with this system. So we run a full development environment on the Desktopography device, and I can actually just write code with it, with a Bluetooth keyboard, for example, right? But it's also touch sensitive, so the rest of that system all works.
So does that mean you need a whole new operating system? Because I mean, I have never heard of either Windows or Apple or Linux, for that matter, to have that kind of thing where the screen, it's sort of like it's all meshed in together. What do? You wrote your own OS for that?
So yeah, we wrote our own windowing system. So it's built on top of, it can be built on top of like Linux or Windows or whatever. But it's basically a custom windowing system that's built on top of that manages all of the windows and displays. So right now, what we can do is actually it's running a sort of web operating system effectively, where we can run web applications, from Chrome and whatnot, right? But yeah, essentially, we can run any web app that already exists, and with that, you can build sort of mobile-sized or desktop-sized or desktop-sized applications for the system. Yeah.
So I have to ask you, are you actually talking on one of those systems right now, or what are you actually talking on right now?
I'm using a conventional laptop because we don't have a camera built into the system yet.
Oh my God, Robert, how boring! What are you doing to me?
Oh, sorry.
So I gotta ask you one more question that's sort of interesting to me. Aren't desktops kind of like backwards? My kids, they run around with their phone. My sons are 17 and 20, right? Actually, soon to be 18 and 20. But in any case, they have like these small phones, and they live off of this. They have stuff. Actually, they have a game desktop. That's what they do. But what is it with desktops? So is the idea that it's about any surface that it gets projected on?
Yeah. So one of the things mobile devices are undeniably really convenient, and we're not trying to take those away or anything like that, right? You're going to continue to have your mobile devices, and I think smartphones will probably last a pretty long time. But one of the things that's like true of like the desktop is like for the last maybe like 30 years, like since we got personal computers sitting on our desks, that hasn't really changed. Like basically, it's been like a personal computer on your desk, and like the way like people at home or at their office interact with ordinary desks. And this doesn't have to be a desk either. It could be like a countertop in your kitchen, or like a table in your like living room or whatever, right? Like think of any sort of flat surface like that. All those surfaces are still like the same as they were in like the 1800s. They've got like books and like knickknacks on them. Maybe there's a computer on top, but that's about it. So this is about sort of transforming those spaces that have been sort of unchanged for centuries, right? And then into sort of interactive digital platforms. Imagine, just imagine being able to make any desk surface into a big touchscreen. That's kind of what I want to get at here, right?
So one of the things that I'm curious about is that, so you can't show it to us, but does that also, what have you guys used it in the prototype for right now? What kind of interactions have you enabled with this? And I'm coming at this, we talk about the Internet of Things, and this has to have a lot of sensors in it. So tell us a little bit about what have you used it for, and what sensors does it use today?
So this actually has a fairly simple set of sensors, to be honest. So Desktopography basically consists of a projector, which projects out the content that you're actually that you're seeing, and a depth camera. And we're using the depth camera basically for touch sensing. So what the depth camera does is it tells us sort of what objects are in the scene. So what besides the desk itself is actually in the scene, and it tells you where the fingers and hands and arms are. The big thing that actually sets Desktopography apart from anything you might have seen before is Desktopography is designed from the ground up to work with stuff you've already got on the desk. So to give you an example, there's been like systems that have been proposed previously for doing like projection on desks. Like you've seen this at like projection mapping or light shows or stuff. You go to like a museum and there's like a big table where you can like whatever, right? That stuff's been done. But what's different about this is, like, if you look at a typical person's desk, they don't just have like a big blank desk where there's nothing going on, right? They've got like all sorts of stuff on it, right? Like, look at the table behind you. You've got a bunch of, like little knickknacks on it. Look at the desk that's probably in front of you. There's lots of stuff on it, right? And so What Desktopography does is it uses a depth camera to detect objects and actually has interfaces be able to interplay along with them. So in our video, we show an example of where an interface can be assigned to snap to an object and move around with it. So as you drag like your laptop around, right? Like a keyboard, a virtual keyboard we snap to it can be attached to that. Or if you had like your coffee mug and you want to put a little interface next to that, right? You move your coffee mug around, that can actually attach to that. What's the point of that? Well, that's allowing basically these digital interfaces to behave like they are attached to physical objects in the real world, and to also understand where these physical objects are. So the whole interplay between these physical objects and the digital interfaces makes that more practical for a desk interface.
Interesting, super interesting. In case you just joined, you're watching Coffee with Mr. IoT. Today I have Robert Xiao with me. Did I say it right this time?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry for the last time. And we're talking about Desktopography. I don't know why I'm struggling with this. I'm going to blame it on my heritage. But in any case, I have a question for you. So we talked a little bit. So you talked about touch, right?
Yeah.
And then you talked about how it actually sees objects and follows them. So it's actually doing more than touch. It's actually doing visual things. I didn't hear you talk about voice. Does it do voice?
So we don't currently have voice, but that's something we could definitely add. And voice recognition is pretty popular. So I mean, like this, it wouldn't. We don't really have the voice recognition technology, but like a bunch of companies do. So imagine partnering up with Apple to get Siri on this device, or imagine partnering up with Amazon to get Alexa on here, right? And it's just basically, but that you can already see is a thing that's being done, right? Having the smart assistant be part of it.
So you're saying it's not the future thing; it's already here today. So therefore, you're talking about things that aren't here today.
Right. So we're trying to demonstrate parts of this that are not yet real. Yeah.
Hey, I don't
that aren't yet like commercially available. Yeah. A better way to say that.
So one of the things, I don't know if you followed the Facebook developer show a couple of months ago, but Mark Zuckerberg talked about implants, how they can watch and listen to what people do with when they're thinking. Are you guys working on that too? What do you think about this? Is that the future, or is that just some hokey pokey thing that?
Well, like brain implants?
Yeah.
Man, so I gotta say, brain implants seem like they're pretty far in the future to really determine what someone is doing. We had the emotion sensing headsets that didn't really work all that well back in like the 90s, but to really sense what a person
they work.
Well, I mean, they're like 80% accurate kind of thing, like it's not like foolproof. And if you wanted to make like a game out of those, well, I played some of those emotion sensing games. They're pretty freaking hard because the system's not like super accurate, right? But like more to the point, those are really coarse. And if you wanted to determine what someone is like thinking at a really fine level, I think unfortunately we might be like 30 or 40 years out from that. But I don't want to
You like it?
Right on anyone's brain, right? But brain sensing stuff's pretty far out. Now there's definitely a ton of scope for brain-computer interaction. It's a field. It's a real field. There's people doing all sorts of really cool stuff, controlling prosthetics with their mind, or like being able to train themselves to actually use those kinds of implants specifically to do some actions. But to detect sort of what someone's thinking passively, I think we're a little ways from that.
Okay, cool. So when you do your prototypes, how many people do you test that out with? And do you do things where you go and like show it to 100 people and get their input? I'm just curious, how much is this sort of science and how much is it user interaction that you do with that?
So what we do when we build interactive systems is we do evaluate them. So as an example, for the touch sensing, I'll bring 100. Well, in our case, we brought about 20 people in and actually had them, touch the surface and determine how accurate is our touch sensing. How well is that working? So that stuff we do evaluate it. We're planning on doing a deployment study with Desktopography, in which we are going to bring a bunch of people in and actually have them use the system and get their feedback and see what kind of pain points there are, what do they have trouble with, all that stuff. So there's there's a whole science behind it. There's a whole user evaluation, user experience study, and rigorous methods basically to do all that. So yeah, we're doing science. Yeah, we're still scientists, and so that's something that we are going to do. Yeah.
How do you pick your 20 or 100 people? How does someone that watches right now kind of get into this if they'd like to?
Well, if you live in the Pittsburgh area, give me a shout. Yeah, we'd be happy to have you run our user study.
Well, next time I'm out there, I'll definitely gonna stop by.
Yeah, stop by.
By the way, did you know that supposedly the very first IoT device was at Carnegie Mellon University?
That doesn't surprise me. We've invented a lot of stuff. We invented Smiley.
Did you see what it was?
No, maybe you can enlighten me.
My understanding, and this might just be an urban legend, who knows, but my understanding is that the students in the university had only one Coke machine, and
yes,
they wanted to see if the Coke machine was full enough before they walked 5 flights down or up, and so they put a sensor in there to see if it has something in there. And here you're drinking out of a can, right? So it was the sensing Coke machine. I don't know if it was Coke.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yep. The sensing Coke machine was the first IoT device, and actually, it's on its 5th generation. It's still running somewhere in one of our buildings. Yeah. Yeah. No, that Coke machine survives. Yeah. Been upgraded a couple times. I think
maybe we have to do an upgrade to the show here, so the follow-on where you walk us by that Coke machine when you find it, because it's a story thing right now. So I kept asking you questions, things that interest me. What are the things that I haven't asked you that might interest other people? What are the things that sort of, what comes up for you?
Sorry?
What questions haven't I asked you that you want to talk about in terms of what you guys do at the, when you think about the future of human interaction with computers?
So, our lab is actually, I guess, as just a quick introduction, I work with Professor Chris Harrison, who is the sort of lab director, I guess, for our future interfaces group. Let's see, right there.
Look at you.
Branding right there. And so we're a group of PhD students, 3 PhD students in all, actually, just who work on all sorts of technologies. So we're exploring tons of new frontiers in human-computer interaction. So things like electric field sensing, things like like sort of super sensing, where you pack a whole bunch of sensors into a device and do stuff. Where I'm exploring on-world interaction, so ways for people to interact with every device in their, or with every surface in their environment, as if it was a touch screen. So we're running in all sorts of different directions, and we got lots of stuff going on all the time. You come over. We'll show you like 15 different demos, all sorts of stuff. It'll be a great
super time. Sensing. You showed me something before. Was that super sensing?
Yeah. So this might be relevant to the folks who are doing IoT work, as you are, after all, Mr. IoT. And so I've got like a little prototype super sensor right here. And so what this is, and this is a work we actually published a couple months ago. This is basically a sensor that has a whole bunch of sensor, this is basically a little, super sensor that's got a whole bunch of little sensors packed on top. So you got like an infrared sensor, like a heat sensor, accelerometer, just measure different vibrations, magnetometer to measure basically magnetic resonances, magnetic changes, EM sensor to measure basically electromagnetic field variation, all sorts of stuff packed on one little sensor. And the idea is basically we can use machine learning to actually determine, once you've plugged one of these sensors into a home, pretty much anywhere, we can use machine learning to figure out what you're doing. So if you turn on the blender, right, that makes a really characteristic sound. We can learn the sound of that sound, and we can tell you, hey, the blender's on, it's doing this, what mode it's in, right? We can learn, for example, what it looks like when you turn on and off the lights. We can learn, for example, what the heat signature of your oven looks like. So we can tell you, you left the oven on or you left the stove on. Right? If you put it in the kitchen, or if you put it in some, like a workshop, right? We can tell you which tools are running, or automatically determine whether a tool is maybe working normally, or whether maybe it isn't working normally. So this is something that we can actually learn automatically with machine learning, to put one of these sensors and sense everything. So instead of attaching a special sensor to every single device, in your home or in your office or wherever, right? you can actually have one of these super sensors to sense everything. And that's the sort of goal of the super sensing project.
Could I put the super sensor on my boat and it would actually listen to my engine when my engine is running off?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great use case. Yeah. Plug it in somewhere on your boat, and yeah, you'd be able to sense all, everything that was going on there. Yeah.
And maybe I have a next project for you to come out and maybe we could.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's
my boat. That'd be fantastic. So.
Yeah. The IoT boat.
Yeah. Well, Robert, it was a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for making the time. Anything else before we close it out here? We seem to be coming to an end, and I just wanted anything else you want to share with us? Any sort of things going on?
Well, I gotta say, we've got lots of stuff going on. We've got a website, figlab.com. So you can go ahead, go there, look at all of our videos, subscribe, and watch out for new stuff, because we got lots of stuff coming out all the time. Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much. It was great seeing what you do, and I can't wait to come by visit you at some point in time. And thanks for making the time. Say hi to everyone, okay?
Yeah.
Thanks, Robert. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.